Hey everybody, let's get started. I'm Steve Allison. I'm the GM for the Epic Game Store here at Epic, and we're going to discuss the evolution of third-party app stores and really get the insights across all the different folks here at Aptoide and the Altstore, and also leave some time for you guys to ask us some questions in an AMA style. Just ask us anything. We'll do our best to answer it as long as we can. And let's jump in. So the first topic is you guys are here at UE Fest. This is an audience of developers. We're all App Store operators, and Tim, our CEO. And let's start with what's your pitch to developers to go outside the App Store and Google Play Store and mobile and come to Aptoide or Altstore.
Good morning, everybody. So my name is Paulo 300. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Aptoide. Just very briefly, what is Aptoide? So we are an Android app store and now iOS app store that exists since 2009. We started much based in the community, open source, GPL, and so on. And over the years, it grew. Now we had around 40 million monthly active users operated across our different app stores and network of partners, Aptoide, Aptoide Games, GamesHub, and so on. And about the pitch, I guess that for us is providing developers with more users, a channel to reach new users and getting more, enlarging the user base besides Google Play and Apple App Store.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Riley Testa. I'm the founder of Altstore. And just very quick background. 10 years ago, I tried to distribute my app Delta in the App Store, but it was rejected because Apple didn't want video game emulators allowed in the App Store at the time. And I thought that was kind of dumb because I just wanted to play Pokemon on my phone and other Nintendo games. So I spent the next few years building out Altstore. And then earlier this year, we finally released Altstore Pal as an official app store in the EU with Delta as our main app. And it scared Apple so much that they ended up allowing us to put Delta in the App Store too. So that was pretty great. And so yeah, the pitch for us is we're all about indies. It's just us two working on this. We built this whole app store ourselves. We want to make a whole app store that's meant for other indies that can just put their apps out there without having to worry about Apple rejecting it. Because we kind of just like want to be like the 90s when you just put anything up on the internet, like shareware, and just get it out there for free. And so we think that's great.
And so hi, I'm Shane Gill. I'm the co-founder of Altstore. And so kind of, along the lines of what Riley's saying, we're very indie focused. We have built a Patreon for ourselves, and that's how we've funded everything that we've done. And we're kind of here to show that, you can do things a different way. We've used Patreon as like our whole monetization strategy in a way to promote developer first in our store. And we've used that to do early access is how we like monetize ourselves and just kind of showing like you can do something different than what the App Store allows. And you can do all sorts of things. And we're really just promoting these ways of getting developer focused stuff out there.
Thanks, guys. And for us, I would, from my perspective, I would say our commitment to scale so that you all have additional options is really, really critical to us. And then the opportunity, with scale to earn more of every dollar, have alternatives. And we have so many exciting things coming up where you'll have the opportunity to maybe push even your existing users on other platforms to options on the Epic Game Store to earn more revenue in much the same way you might on Coda Pay or Exola web shops. And we can't wait to get to that later, but scale and opportunity are our biggest for us. All right, topic 2. What have you guys learned building your own mobile store that other developers considering jumping into this space should know before they jump in?
So I think, a big thing for us is, it's just Riley and I, we're like the whole company of Altstore. And so I think we're here to kind of show, even a small company can do it. If you have the idea, you should go for it. We've been able to get through everything that Apple's put in front of us is like how to launch an iOS app store and do something different. And I think that like shows, sort of anyone can do it. And we're really here to like promote that idea.
Yeah, and honestly, it's just way easier now than when we started all this. Like we started this 5 years ago before there was a law to make app stores a real thing. And to have a conversation about why you want an alternative app store just was really hard to have with people because we're so used to living in this app store, at least on iOS. We're used to just having the app store and thinking all the apps are out in there. And to try to tell people there's a whole world they're missing is just really hard. But yeah, now that the law is passed and we've been able to establish ourselves, it's a lot easier. The momentum's building. And so I think we'll just get better with time.
I'd say one of our lessons, and I think it's been taught across the industry a bunch of times, is if you have a really good game, people will go to your website, they'll download your game. If you want to launch your own store with it, people will download that too, a store or a launcher. Like Riot Games launched League of Legends through their website, and that's, until they came to the Epic Games Store, that was the only place to get it because they didn't want to put it on Steam and give 30% of their revenue to Valve. We did it with Fortnite, and it totally worked. We just got all of the users we wanted. Genshin Impact launched on their own website, reached a huge user base, and then they came to Epic Games Store and reached more, and never had a gatekeeper forcing them to hand over a percentage of their revenue. They've been free to make their choices. And if you look back even further, 18 years or so, a little company called Valve launched their own game through their own launcher and their website, and then it became Steam. So you can do it. And if you have a great game, you don't need the gatekeeper. And guess what? The gatekeeper might have a huge audience, but they have an even huger number of games that are competing with yours. And so direct-to-consumer is a really viable thing to consider.
Follow anything there? Or?
No, I just agree. So there are business cases where direct-to-consumer self-distribution makes sense. There are other cases where you can distribute it through an app store. I truly believe in the mission of the app stores. I think we play a role in the ecosystem, a positive role. And what is that role? There are 7 billion people connected by mobile phones. For them, most of them, the mobile phone is the first device to connect to internet and get information, leisure, and so on. And having just one store there does not make sense for me. One store in Android, one store in iOS. So we play the role to help developers to reach out users. And an app store is just not a dummy thing where you go there and search for Spotify or for Fortnite, because for that you go to Fortnite website and to Spotify website. You don't need the app store. For me, the store is to help discover the best games and the best developers for the users that don't know all the developers, right? Sometimes it happens, I want to try a new indie game. And then the app store should help. In the past, it could help, and today it's just a matter of paid acquisition for who runs the current app store's incumbents.
Great, thank you. All right. This question, this topic, what do you think are the benefits for app developers that are looking to offer their apps on third-party app stores, and what might be some of the downsides? Tim, I'll flip that one to you to maybe kick us off there.
Well, each store brings its own audience and its own flavor. The Epic Games Store on PC was defined by the Fortnite audience initially, people who, a large portion of whom had never used Steam. They were people getting into gaming because their friends were playing Fortnite, often on console, and they were coming into gaming on PC. Altstore has an audience around people who are fans of emulators. There's different audiences, and the one store that has everything is a ferociously competitive place, and their ad fees are insanely high, and the more the better, generally. If you're going to ship on stores, ship on all of them. That's been our strategy. As soon as we were able to launch on mobile, we support all of the stores that were awesome to developers.
No, I mean, just like that. Yeah, I think there are so many advantages for developers to be putting other stuff on other stores. And I think we're kind of seeing it today. Like, the mobile economy has kind of just gotten stagnant. And a lot of this is just because there's no room for innovation, really. Like, at least again on iOS, Apple rules the App Store with like an iron fist, and it's hard to ever push the boundaries of what's allowed. And so we end up just not really going anywhere interesting beyond what Apple's controlling. And it is in big ways and in small ways. Like, one of the other apps in Altstore is another app I made called Clip. It's a clipboard manager. It just runs in the background, and just like whenever you copy something, it saves it, and you can paste it whenever you want. That kind of stuff isn't allowed in the App Store, even though it's a very useful thing that a Mac can do, that a Windows PC can do. And so we just think there's so many ideas like that, just like Clipboard Manager, or so much bigger, that could exist. And we just haven't seen them yet until y'all put it out there.
Yeah, and I think to even add on to that, like, we offer other ways that you can, monetize or how you want to do your project. Like, you can really do it yourself in a different way. And even though Apple has one way of doing things, or Android has one way of doing things, having more different stores just means that everybody can kind of figure out what makes sense for them as a project, and you can really like custom fit what you're doing. And just having those options means that you now have that ability.
Yeah, I would highlight an extra point about the benefits, which is the mobile industry is changing a lot and very quickly in terms of apps distribution. Steve talked about the Digital Markets Act in Europe, but the MCC in UK. In Japan, they passed the law. So what is today the landscape of apps distribution will change a lot in 2 years. So self-distribution, alternative app stores, and the learning curve will take time to understand the best business cases for each case. When is better to self-distribute? When is better to do paid acquisition through Meta Ads or Google Ads directly for alternative app store instead of Google or Apple? And to learn that, being first mover is important in my opinion. So I would say that the advantage to jump in early is also to know. Like the Zing and Farmville back in the days of Facebook when they discover a space that nobody was looking into it. I see the same opportunity for the developers that take this first step and try to understand better this world of alternative app stores that is emerging.
Awesome. All right, our next topic. So what are the benefits for consumers? I'll kick this one off. From my perspective, we have great benefits for developers. We're very clear with that. We go into places like UEFest and GDC, and we sort of make that clear, and we're always in conversation with all you guys. But there's a lot of that question does come up, and I think in the case of mobile, my personal opinion and the opinion of much of our team is that the App Store and the Play Store are fairly joyless places to look for things that give players joy. It's turned into a spearfishing app where you generally get hooked by UA, and then you come in and you type in the name of the game that you saw the ad for, and you grab it. And that's super effective and fun, functional, but it's not fun. Digital retail, our human nature, we like to discover things, we like to browse things, we like to shop. Those stores today don't really offer that, and we want to, at least in the case of the Epic Game Store, we want to bring joy back to digital retailing. It sounds corny, maybe it is, but it's a real thing. Like all of us, we build things that make people like super happy and stoked and like spend their free time. We want our place to be the place where players who care about that kind of stuff want to go shopping. And things like our free games program, we've always designed it from jump to be like, hey, we're going to offer games that some of them have sold great and they work really great for user acquisition, but we also want players to discover games they might have missed from developers that are awesome and become fans of those developers. Bringing that program to mobile, I think, is going to be super cool and really benefit people who are making mobile content. So those are two benefits. I could go on for an hour and a half, so I'll stop there. Now, if you guys or Tim, you have any thoughts there?
Sure. Yeah. No, I think you nailed it. Yeah, we're trying to bring fun back. I think that's a really important thing. Just the mobile economy, just phones aren't fun anymore. Everything's boring. We just want to bring some fun back. And like, we're trying to bring emulators. We want to play Pokemon on our phones. We want to play Mario on our phones. Crazy stuff like that. But then I also think I should point out, this isn't just benefiting consumers who are using alternative app stores. Like, again, Apple changed their rules for the normal app store to allow emulators because we launched our app store. So now around the world, people can now download emulators because of that.
You guys made change happen. Like,
exactly.
That's a benefit for players, right?
Worldwide competition. What a concept. And then additionally, like a couple months ago, it happened again. We tried to get a virtual machine app into Altstore, and then Apple was a little threatened by it. And so they changed the App Store rules worldwide. So now you can install Windows and on your iPad and everything just through the App Store. And so, yeah, I think it's just good for everyone, whether you use an alternative app store or not.
Yeah, and I think even to add on to that, I come from, I used to jailbreak my phone in high school and do sorts of crazy stuff and come from like the modding community and people who used to use devices for, whatever kind of idea you could find on the internet and whatever cool projects people were doing. And I think some of that's been lost through sort of the top-down control that Apple has and just app stores have in general. And opening it up to more app stores just means that more of these ideas are going to come to the surface and people will start experimenting more again, and people can kind of have fun with their devices the way that, I remember, and people had lots of fun having, like some of my best times were just like going like, oh my gosh, I can do this. I didn't even realize, and I think some of those moments have just like kind of gone away and everyone's a bit more complacent now with like how things are. And I think just now having this open just means there's much more excitement, lots more fun, and we're really just trying to push that forward.
I agree. I would just kind of wrap up saying that competition drives innovation, competition drives better products. And what can be a better product for a user, a better app store for the user? Well, first could be more specialized app stores. I think it will happen more specialized app stores, not like 1 million apps, 3 million apps, but maybe specific RPG games or specific for a specific country with specific content. The second is, of course, the fees, the revenue share, and so on. That would impact the developers, but also the users. It's obvious. Competition drives less margins, less profit. And third, I would say that is support. Big spenders have a kind of a good, relatively good support, but the other users, I don't have a good support in terms of the Apple's and Google's App Store, and that reflects also in the customer support for the developer. I think that can also improve.
I also, just to circle back too, I also think there's some opportunities that have just been missed in the space. And in the case of what we're doing on the Epic Game Store, with the multi-platform store approach and connecting users across platforms and ecosystems, and then having we're going to have lots to talk about in the future about Metcalfe's Law and the social platform that we're going to bring is going to be really, really cool. And so users getting that experience in mobile that they just haven't ever gotten, which is the thing that they do on consoles where they can party up with their friends outside of the games they're playing, chat with their friends. And in the case of the Epic Game Store, our plan is to enable chat and social parties across mobile devices, a friend on an Android device, a friend on an iOS device, and a friend on PC, maybe not even playing the same game, but connecting with each other and talking about games and eventually playing games together, of course, but more utility than you currently get out of the big guys right now. All right, let's talk a little bit about what is standing in the way of effective competition, and Tim's probably the biggest expert here, so I'll let him speak on that one.
Gee, I think their names are Apple and Google. So, like outside of Europe, Apple just doesn't allow competition. Like that's an insane, and we thought blatantly illegal policy, but we lost Epic versus Apple US on that topic. So somebody else has to fight and win that one in the future now that it's ever more clear what they're doing. Google nominally allows competing stores on Android, but Google is much more insidious than Apple. At least Apple tells you, like it's written in the rules, you're not allowed to compete with us. Google says you are, and then does all kinds of crooked things to block you. You just go to install the Epic Game Store on a Samsung Android device, and you have to go through 21 steps, in which they lead you to this page in the settings, and then another page in the settings, and then you're stuck in a dead end and have to navigate your way back through 21 different steps. And some of the steps just lie to you. Some of the steps say, the Epic Game Store is from an unknown source. Well, like Google definitely knows who Epic is. Quite sure of that by now. Another one of the screens says that our software might harm your device, and it won't. Google knows it won't harm your device. I'm sure they've looked into that. Such as the Google Fortnite task force, the secret team they assembled to try to undermine Epic, looked extensively for that. So just the blatant dishonesty there is a big problem, as well as both Apple and Google's willingness to just ignore the law, to interpret the law in completely disingenuous ways as cover for openly breaking the law with a cover story. And until regulators and law enforcers crack down on them, we're just going to see a completely broken market here. At least we have some semblance of functionality back up and restored in Europe, but it's still highly, highly impeded by Apple and Google's scare screens and bad practices and attempts to attach junk fees to things and just make it really, really hard for competition. But this is what we're fighting over, and it's what we're fighting for, and we'll keep fighting on until it's solved.
You guys, anything?
Yeah, exactly. Nailed it. Yeah, I mean, Tim fully nailed it. Like, it is primarily this Apple and Google standing in the way, so I don't need to say too much more about that. Just from our own personal experience, we really tried to work with Apple when we first started. We really wanted to be on their side, and we wanted to say, hey, we can coexist with y'all. We don't need to be your enemies. We can just take the apps you don't want from the App Store, and we'll take them. And they just did not want to give an inch at any point in this whole process. They really went in kicking and screaming. And so we really had to reevaluate our whole plan of like, okay, I guess they really don't want to be open about competing, even though they are legally mandated. it's very much ingrained in, at least for Apple, that they are not wanting this to happen. So yes, it's a constant uphill battle dealing with them. And just one thing people don't know is they still have to review all the apps that go through Altstore. So they still could reject any apps that we're distributing ourselves. So yeah, I could go on a lot more like Tim, but I'll stop there.
If I have to summarize in one word what is standing in the way of competition in Google and Apple, that word for me would be friction. So Google and Apple protect their monopoly through friction. And that friction is all the screens, all the things as a user that you have to go to side loading. This morning in Twitter and in the topic of the new legal cases that Epic raises and that I fully agree against Samsung and Google. I was with a VP of Google and he says, no, we are here and we are doing this friction to protect the users and to have a safe ecosystem. And there is and I think he's a smart guy and I think that team does a good work, but there is something basic that I cannot understand why a smart person can say, which is if Google Play Protect knows the signatures of the developers and knows the MD5 of the packages, right? They know, they put it in Google Play. So Google Play Protect have that database. How do we need so much friction to sideload an APK of Fortnite? It's so well known for Google Play, right? It's safe. You don't need to put 4 or 5 screens saying that is potential malware, right? So this friction, I think that is so obvious that needs to be reduced in the future. And if it is reduced by the push of the regulators or courts, because they will not do it by themselves, then I think that we'll see much more competition that will benefit developers and users, of course.
I just add like those steps, the screens and all the steps that are designed to put friction in front of the process. In our case, our experience is like we lose half the people that intend to install the store. They either get lost on the dead ends or they get scared by the screens, or they just get impatient. And getting people to drop out by design is not a really great thing to do. Getting people to be informed is really useful if they're worried about security and truly unknown apps. I think that's all fair. But like everyone said here, they know that the apps are here. They're notarizing our content. I mean, our comms team says it, and I really like the way they say it. It's like we want the computer in your pocket to work like the computer on your desktop with like notarization, where developers are trusted, where we don't have to have all these steps, and we can get content to players with 2 or 3 steps instead of 21 steps. And last, before we sort of head to, hopefully you guys have some questions for us. Otherwise, it'll be a little bit shorter session. Can anyone share what's next? You guys want to share what's next for Aptoide and Altstore? Apollo, you want to?
Glad to do it. So what we are launching Aptoide games this quarter. So it's a specialized app store for games, curated content for games. And we are launching also that with different versions in Japan and outside, because we are looking into how can we kind of curate and shape the app store for a specific market, in this case, Japan. It's an experiment, and let's see how it goes. The second thing we are doing, like everybody else, but I'm super excited with that, is generative AI to help the user to discover things. So we have kind of an assistant where I can say to him, oh, I want to install a game, an indie game, I like this and this game, or I don't even need to say because it's inside the App Store. And he suggests several games, and I can tell me about those games and I can interact with them. So that's something we are developing and launching next quarter. It's not nothing super genius because everybody's doing something similar, but I think the results are very promising.
And yeah, we're going to be focused on building up our library of apps over the next few months. A few months ago, we released the first third-party apps through Altstore, including like the virtual machine app. And 2 weeks ago, we released the first tools for basically anyone to actually completely self-publish their app through Altstore. And so we're very excited to see that play out for the next couple months, because I think that's where we're going to really start to see a lot of the innovation, when there's just no barriers to entry just to get your app out there.
Yeah, and I think to even add on to that, it's like we use Patreon. All our code is hosted on GitHub. We recognize that developers are using lots of tools already themselves, and we're kind of just trying to say, hey, just bring what you have already and plug into our store. We're trying to be as hands-off as possible. We're not trying to disrupt your flow, and let you just release what you need to and not stand in your way.
And then I've sort of hit them early, but the big things for us coming up next is in the holiday season we'll open up with our first third-party applications. We probably expect somewhere between 10 and 50 of them to be ready. The biggest thing is just going to be implementing payment solutions. So that may push some of these out into the subsequent months. But the free games program will launch in Q4 along with the third-party apps showing up. And we're going to have some awesome stuff for players that will also be awesome for developers because it'll help us scale really quickly. And then self-publishing tools, which means developers can come in without any interactions with us like they do on PC today. Probably in the first half of the year, hopefully as close to January as possible. And then the social framework that we sort of talked about here a little bit later in the year. But then when all those three things come together, we're off to the races. And it's going to be a lot of fun. A lot of work, but a lot of fun.